Hello everyone and welcome back. In our last explainer, we looked at the first noble truth and established a universal symptom, that baseline feeling of dissatisfaction, what we call dukkha. And that, of course, leads us to the most important question you can ask. What's the cause? Today, we find out.
Welcome to Bodhi Unified Flow. I'm Dr. Marimuthu, and this is where we simplify complexity to amplify performance. And the complexity we're getting into today is right at the heart of the human condition.
So here's our game plan for unpacking the second noble truth. First, we'll frame the diagnosis. Then, we'll zoom in on the root cause, this powerful thing called Taṇhā. We'll look at its 3 different faces, learn to tell it apart from healthy desire, and finally see how it fits into the whole chain of causation. And by the end of our time together, you're going to have a really solid grasp on the true cause of our dissatisfaction. You'll be able to spot its different forms in your own life, you'll know the crucial difference between helpful and harmful desire, and you'll see the exact mechanism that can keep us feeling stuck.
All right, let's dive into Section 1, the diagnosis of dissatisfaction. Now, I find it really helpful to think of the 4 noble truths as a kind of medical framework. The first truth is simply identifying the symptom. We all experience dukkha. It's this background hum of unsatisfactoriness.
And this is the big question, isn't it? If we're all feeling this, what's causing it? Is it our jobs, our bank accounts, the state of the world? You know, the Buddha's answer was pretty radical for its time, because he didn't point to anything out there. He pointed right back at us.
And this, right here, is the core insight. The problem isn't what happens to us. It's not the pain, the loss, the change. That's just life. The real issue is our mind's reaction to all of that. Suffering is an inside job, a mental habit. And honestly, that's a total game changer. Because if the cause is inside, well, so is the cure.
So, what do we call this internal cause? That brings us to Section 2, where we finally put a name to it. The thirst called Taṇhā. This is it. This is the Buddha's specific, core diagnosis for our universal symptom of dissatisfaction. The word used in the original Pali text is Taṇhā, and it literally means thirst. Just think about that metaphor for a second. When you are truly, deeply thirsty, it's not just a casual want, is it? It's a powerful, insistent, all-consuming drive. That's the feeling. That's the nature of the craving that the Buddha identified as the root of all our trouble.
And what's so important to get is that this thirst isn't something we consciously choose. As Ajahn Sukito puts it so well, it's a reflex. It's the mind's automatic lunge to grab onto an experience, to feed on it. And because the pleasure never lasts, the thirst just moves on. It's looking for its next hit, jumping from a nice taste to a good song, from one promotion to the next big goal. It's this restless, compulsive, and ultimately unsatisfying energy.
Okay, so let's deepen our diagnosis here in Section 3. It's not enough to just say thirst. The Buddha was a brilliant psychologist. He broke it down into 3 distinct types. And when you understand these, you can start to see them everywhere.
So take a look at this table. It lays out the 3 fundamental ways this thirst shows up. First, you've got the craving for sensual pleasures, kama taṇhā. Then there's the craving to exist, to have an identity, that's bhava taṇhā. And finally, maybe the most subtle one, is the craving for non-existence, vibhava taṇhā, which is really the desperate urge to escape pain. Each one is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how things really are.
So this first one, kama taṇhā, this is basically the engine of our modern consumer culture. It's that compulsive need to refresh your phone for the little dopamine hit of a new like. It's the belief that the next shiny object, the next vacation, the next Netflix binge will finally be the thing that makes us happy for good. But it never is it?
Then you have bhava taṇhā. This is the craving to be somebody, to lock down a solid, permanent identity. Think about the immense pressure today to build a personal brand, the anxiety around our status, our job titles, our reputation. We cling to our story of who we are, trying to build something permanent and stable in a world that is anything but. And the third one, vibhava taṇhā, is the craving to get rid of something. It's our powerful aversion to pain, to discomfort, even just to boredom. This is the reflex to numb out, to dive into our phones, to blast music to avoid a difficult conversation, or even to lash out in anger to just make a painful situation go away. It's that desperate search for an escape hatch from the discomfort of the present moment.
Now this naturally leads to a really important question. A lot of people hear this and think, okay, so is all desire bad? Am I supposed to become some kind of passionless robot?
And the Buddha's answer to that was a very clear and emphatic no.
We have to make a crucial distinction here between two kinds of desire. On one side, you have Taṇhā, that reactive, blind thirst we've been talking about. It's the desire to get something, to consume. But on the other side, you have Chanda. This is a wholesome, conscious aspiration. It's the desire to understand, to be a better person, to help others. It's the very energy we need to walk the path to freedom.
And this is the whole point. The goal is not to kill desire, it's to transform it. I love this quote from Ajahn Sucitto. He says, "The entire training is about transforming the compulsive, suffering-producing energy of Taṇhā into the wise, liberating energy of Chanda. It's about learning to consciously direct our own energy for our own well-being."
All right, finally, in Section 5, we have to look at the underlying pathology. To really see why Taṇhā is so powerful, we need to see where it fits in the Buddha's incredibly detailed map of how suffering arises. This is known as dependent origination, and you can think of it as the step-by-step chain reaction of suffering. Now, this whole process gets kicked off by a fundamental misunderstanding of reality: ignorance. This ignorance shapes our actions, our consciousness, and eventually leads to us being a person with a mind, a body, and senses. The crucial moment comes when our senses make contact with the world, because that's what starts the psychological chain reaction. And this is where the real drama unfolds. That initial contact with the world creates a feeling. It's either pleasant, painful, or neutral. And right there, at that moment, that simple feeling triggers the eighth link. And boom, there it is, the star of our show today: craving, or Taṇhā. And from that one single point of craving, the rest of the dominoes fall. Clinging, becoming, and the whole cycle of suffering all over again.
Let's really zero in on this sequence, because this is where the practice happens in our daily lives, moment to moment. It goes like this. First, a feeling arises. It could be anything: the pleasure of good food, the sting of a harsh word. Immediately, automatically, the reflex of Taṇhā kicks in. I want more of that, or get that away from me. And if we're not paying attention, that little spark of craving instantly hardens into full-blown clinging, and we've just spun the wheel of suffering one more time. Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. What have we learned? The cause of suffering isn't out there. It's an internal mental reflux called Taṇhā, or thirst. This thirst shows up in three main flavors: craving for pleasure, craving to be someone, and craving to escape what we don't like. The path isn't about getting rid of desire, but transforming that blind craving into wise aspiration. And finally, we see that Taṇhā is the critical link in the chain that turns a simple feeling into a whole cycle of suffering.
You know, truly understanding the cause of our own dissatisfaction is an incredibly profound and empowering step. It shifts the power from the unpredictable world outside to our own minds. But any good diagnosis is incomplete without a prescription, without a path to healing. And that leads us directly to the third noble truth, the truth of cessation. So, how do we stop this thirst? We'll explore that next time.
Thank you so much for joining me for this session of Bodhi Unified Flow. For anyone who wants to go deeper, here are some of the fantastic sources we used for today's explainer. I really look forward to seeing you again as we continue this journey together.